Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to you, Ms. Wiley. Title VII has been a great American success story and the model for civil rights law and jurisprudence all over the world, and the vast majority of Americans support Title VII, which really embodies the promise of civil rights and people being treated as individuals so that they can actually succeed upon their own merits. And yet Title VII has been opposed from the very beginning, has it not? And it's been resisted at every turn. I think that the ideological forebears of Mr. Rokita and Mr. Berry and Ms. Stepman, like Robert Bork, were arguing against the Civil Rights Act of 1964, saying that it was a violation of freedom of association. And I remember Anita Bryant and other anti-feminist activists arguing that women were not looking for equality and equal rights. Women were looking for a separate place and their special place under religious and cultural heritage. So I just wonder if you would say a word about how this current attack on the Civil Rights Act and Title VII fits in with that history.
Yes, Congressman, there is an unbroken ideological line. In fact, this committee hearing, I think, was noticed the day after Juneteenth, when we recognized the last state in Galveston, Texas, where black people were informed they were free after the Civil War. And the Civil War amendments themselves, the 14th Amendment, which is the underpinning of Title VII, explicitly, and after the Civil War, rejected colorblindness. In fact, in the forming of the amendment, because it was understood that after slavery, there had to be the ability to actually create more opportunities for people who are black. And in fact, the laws passed, like the Freedmen's Bureau, were specific about finding ways to focus on creating more opportunity. When we got to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, again, the longest filibuster in the history of the country, 60 full days before, fortunately, 73 senators, bipartisan, passed the Civil Rights Act, which includes Title VII, as well as Title VI, as well as Title II. But we never saw one day end in the argument that said it was somehow going to be unfair to white people if we were paying attention to racial discrimination. And frankly, it's just never been true that we haven't paid attention to racial discrimination for all people. And anybody who is white can file an EEO complaint, charge right now if they're being discriminated against based on their race, and the EEOC will investigate it. So the whole fact that we're talking about Title VII as if there is a refusal to pay attention to discrimination, or the whole fact that we're suggesting that if black people or Latinos or Native Americans are getting jobs, they must not be qualified for them, that in and of itself speaks to the same arguments we heard in opposition, whether it was post-Civil War or post-1964 or now 2024.
And Mr. Berry was engaged in a colloquy with Representative Gosar about color blindness, which they anchored in the principle of Lady Justice being blindfolded. And it made me wonder about to what extent you think there will be objective, neutral, dispassionate interpretation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 by Justice Alito, Mr. Berry's former boss, whose home displayed the pro-January 6th insurrectionist upside-down American flag, and who displayed other flags in opposition to the American flag, essentially. Do you have a lot of confidence that Lady Justice is blindfolded when it comes to Justice Alito?
I do not.
And finally, just back on the transgender point, there seemed to be some suggestion from our colleagues that transgender individuals pose a threat of rape to American women. Are most American women who are raped by heterosexual men or by but by heterosexual cis men or by heterosexual transgender men?
Well, I will say that what I have seen, which is the letter in support of transgender people being able to utilize the bathroom that matches their identity, from sexual violence providers, rape crisis counselors, is it is transgender people who are more likely, who are often disproportionately victims of sexual violence, and that they have not seen any increase in sexual violence because of protecting the rights of transgender people.
I appreciate that. I'm out of time, but I'll say without fear of being contradicted that the overwhelming majority, if not all of the rapes in America, are conducted by men who are heterosexual cis men. And this other thing is complete paranoid conspiracy theory mythology meant to undermine the progress of civil rights law. I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Khanna from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.